Again, really good to be with you. For those of you joining online, thanks. Great to be with you, and good to be in the room together. So the last couple of weeks, Katie and Joel have done this incredible job of starting the boulder, rolling down the hill. And now it has all this momentum, all this positive momentum of what it is like to kind of begin to experience this life to the full that Jesus talks about, and started with this reality of Katie just helping us understand what does it look like to engage with Jesus as the shepherd, really surrendering to him, constantly living this life of surrendering to Jesus, not just a moment of surrender, but what does a life of surrendering look like? And some of you made just unbelievably radical decisions of surrender, really to begin the year. Some of you in ways that are altering the course of your life. You've gone completely against conventional wisdom, worldly wisdom, to make just follow Jesus, and it's compelling and it's inspiring, and it is part of what Jesus invites us into. This surrendering really is a leadership issue. It's an issue of who's leading, you or Jesus, in these really bold, audacious, the seemingly risk-filled decisions to follow him are incredible. And then last week, Joel talked about this, really just how do we pull ourselves out of some isolation? As sheep, as the good shepherd leads us as sheep and designs us to do life together, how do we pull ourselves out of isolation? And I got a chance to be a part of two conversations in the last week where people, again, same reality, took really what could only be described as really courageous steps, just really stared down fear and stepped right through it, made very courageous steps to really step out of isolation and into some community, into some togetherness. It happened to be at really significant points of need, which really created great opportunities for community to be represented and community to be present in their lives. And so I love it. It's one thing for us to talk about it. It's a one thing for us to discuss the theology and theory. But when people are actually taking steps of surrendering to Jesus and connecting with others, there's nothing better than that. And so now it has all this momentum. We're starting to feel the momentum of this thing that Jesus invites us into and promises us is available. I want to go right back to the same passage of Scripture today. So if you've got a Bible or however you're going to kind of get there today, John chapter 10 in the New Testament of your Bible, John chapter 10, one of these biographical accounts of the life of Jesus. And I just want to say, while you're turning there, Jesus in this passage, really he tells a story or paints an analogy, right? He's painting an analogy to help people try and understand. And he's primarily in this moment talking to Pharisees. And as Katie pointed out a couple weeks ago, Pharisees often get a bad rap, okay? And they do, I mean, they really did get in people's way. They really did make it hard for people to meet and see Jesus. But in some ways, oftentimes, in ways we're not aware, we can be like them a little bit. We can get enough religious knowledge, or we can get enough religious environment or experience that we can actually start to miss Jesus, which is maybe the one we were trying to pursue in the first place. And so Jesus is really trying to help them through that by painting this analogy that's still really helpful for us today. So John chapter 10, we're going to start reading right in verse 1. This is what Jesus says to them. He says, "Very truly, I tell you," here's these Pharisees, "anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is really just a thief and a robber." And that thief and robber thing is going to come up again. Just kind of hold that in your mind a little bit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. This is Jesus beginning to describe himself. He's the shepherd. We're the sheep. Verse 3, "The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out into where they can get pasture, where they can get water, where they can stretch and move and get exercise. He leads them out as part of this experience of them living healthy and vibrant lives." Verse 4, "When he has brought out all of his own, he goes ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they'll never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize the stranger's voice." Just as an aside, one of the greatest promises as a follower of Jesus is that you can live in a way that you know Jesus' voice, and it is the most natural thing for you to follow him. And you also recognize your enemy's voice, and it is the most natural thing to resist him. It is possible for you to live in a way where you are confident you are living, hearing the voice of Jesus and not having to question it at every turn. That's what Jesus is starting to paint there. Hey, this is what I'm inviting you to live in. Verse 6, Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees, they still didn't really understand what he was telling them because they're looking for God to show up in a different kind of way. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly, I tell you, I'm actually the gate. I'm the shepherd and I'm the gate, and people are the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers. There that is again, but the sheep have not listened to them. Verse 9, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and they will go out and they will find pasture. They will find goodness. Now, Jesus has already painted this picture, right, of, look, let me lead. I'm the shepherd. Let me lead. I do have good in store for you. I can see things. Let me lead you. You're going to need to be together with the other sheep so that you are living, surrendering to Jesus, connecting with others. Then he begins to paint a little more intricate picture. In verse 9 there, he said, they come in and they go out. The sheep, they come in and they go out. They come in the gate and kind of find some refuge for the night. They go out in the morning and they are led to the pasture and they're led to the water. They come back in. They come in and they go out. They come in and they go out, which can feel like, well, yeah, okay, right. That's what sheep have to do, right? I mean, they got to come in and they got to go out. But again, Jesus is painting a picture. He's not just giving shepherding facts. He's painting a picture. What we're starting to see is that Jesus is talking about the sheep throughout the course of life. They daily go in and out. We go in and out of periods of our life. We go in and out of different seasons of life. We go in and out of moments. We go in and out of experiences. We go in and out of stages of school and stages of employment, and we go in and out of decades. We go in and out of financial situations and time periods and time frames. We're constant. Life is full of going in and going out, right? I mean, it's constant. We go in and out of some relationships. We're constantly moving in and out. And Jesus paints this picture that the Pharisees would have understood because of the culture of the day and what they knew about shepherds and sheep. That really what happens when sheep are coming in and going out is that the shepherd would be at the gate. And the shepherd, while the sheep is coming out, the shepherd would actually just get right over the sheep while they're coming in or going out of the gate. And they would really just start searching the sheep. They would start detailed form of inspecting the sheep. They'd be pulling the wool aside and they're looking for cuts and scrapes, and each one would get this unique care. I mean, the shepherd, you could almost envision at times, the shepherd just down on the ground, right? Sheep level living, right? Just down on the ground and inspecting, hey, what's really happening? And a lot of times for sheep, flies were the biggest pest, right? I mean, they just were constantly annoying, and sheep don't have big ears to bat them away. They don't have a big tail to bat them away. They can't really do much with their hooves to get rid of it. So these flies would just be sometimes tormenting them, and flies would literally go up into the nose of the sheep and lay eggs inside the head, and it would become so painful and uncomfortable for the sheep. They would actually, when they did go out, they would bang their head on rocks, trying to solve some of that and trying to get rid of the pain. The shepherd would be looking for this, and the shepherd would be saying, okay, how are we doing? And sometimes he would apply some preventative medicine, some oil. He'd look through the wool and check out the legs, because the shepherd would know if the day before that particular sheep had gotten off the path a little bit and got caught in a thorn bush or some kind of briars, or did that one fall into a ditch when it wasn't paying attention? Did it roll over? A lot of times sheep would get an itch and they'd kind of roll over, but the problem of a sheep when a sheep rolls over is a sheep can't get itself back up, right? I mean, just imagine the panic. I mean, right? right? That's what happens when a sheep, and so the shepherd would have to come set it back up, and he would know, oh, there was a reason that that sheep fell over. And so he's, just looking with great detail, trying to understand, trying to be aware. Where does this sheep need some healing? Where does this sheep need some oil applied to keep the flies away or to treat the flies? Or where does this sheep need some oil on the cut or the scrape from that briar? Where does this sheep need any kind of care? Any kind of healing? And I love the fact that it's so detailed. Because here's the thing. When you need healing from something, you want an expert, right? If you've got to have surgery or you got to have a bone set or something, if you break a bone, you're not coming to me. I'm not a bone expert, right? That's not what you're doing, right? You want to go to an expert. Well, the shepherd is the expert. The shepherd knows where the sheep has been. The shepherd knows what's been going on while the sheep has been coming in and out. The shepherd knows what the dangers have been, what the wounds have been. The shepherd is the expert. But when you really need healing, you do want an expert. But don't you also want somebody that cares? Don't you also want somebody that cares? Like, if I need really significant surgery, please, I don't want you to just care. I also want you to be an expert. But if you're an expert, it sure helps me if you also care. It's Jesus. Saying, look, I'm the good shepherd. Look, I'm an expert. I know where my sheep have been. I know where they're going. I know what's happened to them. I know who has attacked them and how they've been attacked. I know when the wolf came in. I know when they fell off that ledge. I know when they got caught. I know what the flies have done. I know how to take care of those things. And I care so much that I will know every single detail. Jesus painting the picture of himself. He is the expert. But he also cares. And part of what he's trying to help us understand, part of what Jesus is trying to teach us is to assume that in the natural course of life, our coming in and going out, healing is both needed and available. Healing in your life and in my life is both needed and available. Jesus includes this fascinating little deal about coming in and going out because it's this window into all of life. We're constantly going in and coming out. And sometimes in the going in and coming out, pain comes. We get caught in the thorn bush. We get the annoying flies. We get attacked by a wolf. He says, look, that's part of it. I'm helping you understand it. In the world in which you live, that is part of it. But I also want you to know that you can assume that healing is going to be needed, but you can also assume that healing is available. There is a good shepherd who cares enough to tell you it's coming and is expert enough to actually do it. It's Jesus. He's doing all of it. Well, what are the ways? What are some of the ways? Like maybe we can't get an all-encompassing list, but what are some of the ways that hurt comes our direction? Let's just talk about a couple, right? There's body hurts, right? You and I sometimes we experience physical illness. There is illness, there is disease, there is brokenness, there is pain, right? There is sometimes physical pain in life, right? Jesus says, look, much like I do for these sheep, you, my sheep, healing is available. It is available. Sometimes there's just life hurts. It's the ones like it's nobody's fault, really. It just happened. It happened to happen to you. And it could be something like you losing things in an accident, or you losing something to a fire or a disaster of some kind. No, nobody did it. It's like life, it just happened, right? It was just in this moment. You end up in the wrong moment, in the wrong company, in the middle of an economic downturn, and you're the one that loses the job, or you're one of the many that loses the job or has the hours cut. Nobody did it to you. It's life. It's the moment and time period we're living in. You don't make a team, and you tried really hard and you worked really hard and you don't make it, and really, truly, nobody was out to get you. It just, there was a line somewhere and you didn't make that team. It's a life hurt. It's a life hurt. But then there's this third one, people hurts. Just people hurts. Which probably is the most common. And maybe it's the one we should consider the most for a couple minutes. How people like you and me hurt other people like you and me. Let me just ask you a question. Who has hurt you? Who's hurt you? Don't try and measure whether or not the hurt was accidental or intentional. For right now, it doesn't matter. The only question is, who has hurt you? In this moment, doesn't matter if that person loves you or not. Just be okay registering who hurt me. Mom? Dad? Grandparent? Sibling? Son? Daughter? Spouse? Former spouse? Boss? Coach? Neighbor? Boyfriend? Girlfriend? Pastor? Friend group? Who turned their back when you needed them most? Who lost their temper when you needed their calm? Who promised and then didn't deliver? Who lied about you, not just to you? Who used their power and their position of influence to run over you, to abuse you, to push you down? Who just wasn't aware of how much they were hurting you when you desperately needed them to see it? Who didn't accept your apology? Who hurt you? Maybe it's been in the last 12 hours. Maybe it was this morning. Maybe it was Maybe it was on the way here. I half jokingly, half seriously often say, one of the greatest gifts of Eric and I riding to church separately every Sunday is we don't run that risk. But I know it's real. Maybe it's happened in the last 12 hours. Maybe it's 12 years ago. Maybe it's 30 years ago. Maybe you've tried to navigate it before. But in moments like this, you try and say it's over, but it keeps resurfacing. Who's hurt you? Part of what Jesus is doing, talking about the sheep coming in and out, trying to help us assume that healing will be needed and is available, it's just helping us come to grips with the fact that we share a planet with other sheep, with other imperfect people like us. That's why I think it's helpful to not consider people's, like, was it accidental or intentional? That's a different layer, but to just acknowledge, wait a second, okay, I have been hurt. I've been hurt. Listed a whole bunch of people. Let me list a couple more. For some of you, it might be a group. It's not an individual. It's a thing. It's an organization. It's a company. It's a management system. It's a group of people in your school. It's this friend group, which isn't your friend group, and the pain that friend group has caused you. For some of you, it's the church. For some of you, it's how a group of neighbors have responded to you or not responded to you. Or a group of your employees. You're the leader in how they've responded to you. It's left pain. For some of you today, the person that you feel like has maybe hurt you most is you. Is you. And even if nobody else is blaming you for things or holding things against you, you're holding them against you. You're your greatest disqualifier. You even work real hard to not hold things against other people, but you hold some stuff against you. Jesus, in this coming in and going out moment, this picture of caring as the expert only could care for his sheep, is helping us come to grips with the fact that it's okay for us to assume that healing is both needed and it's available. So whether your hurt feels like something so minuscule, whether it was one stray word that lodged in there, again, last night or last decade doesn't even matter. Whether it's just this one small thing, or whether it is the extreme of significant abuse of some kind, healing is needed and healing is available. So what do we do with it? What is our part in the coming in and going out? If the shepherd is trying to heal, what's our part? There's a few choices we can make today. The first one is to make the choice to forgive them. Is to forgive them, whoever them is. Whatever person or persons, whatever organization or group, whatever tribe, whoever them is for you. Again, run back to your mom, your dad, your sibling, your child, your grandparent, your boss, your spouse. There's some things we got to know about forgiveness. First, forgiveness opens the door to the healing. What we will not forgive, Jesus cannot heal. What we will not forgive, Jesus cannot heal. Forgiveness is part of his invitation to healing. What we will not forgive, Jesus cannot heal. Now, hear what I said there, what we will not forgive, because I know some of us, we will say the pain is so deep, and for some of us, the pain has been so constant, it's been so repetitive, that the natural thought is to say, I just can't forgive. Here's what's so helpful and powerful about forgiveness, is that forgiveness is a choice, not a feeling. Forgiveness is a choice we make, not a feeling we have. You're like, well, that doesn't seem very fair. I want to feel it, right? I want to feel like I, for one, and I think you are too, I, for one, am glad Jesus did not wait until he felt like forgiving to get on a cross. Right? I mean, I don't think Jesus had warm and fuzzies on the way. In fact, the complete opposite is true when we see his prayer the night before his crucifixion. Right? How deeply anguished he was. He chose it. He chose it. Forgiveness is a choice. And what I want you to hear today is that you can choose it. You can choose it. Not only is it helpful to understand that forgiveness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. It's also helpful to understand that sometimes forgiveness is a scary move, because we're still in the place or in the dynamic or in the relationship or environment where the hurt keeps coming. We're in a marriage where there's this constant hurt and friction, and we want to take steps forward. We want to move. But to forgive while we're in it, that can feel overwhelming and so scary, because we know we forgive, but we know things aren't yet perfect and things aren't yet even moving in a great direction. And if I forgive now, there's another one coming. Yeah, it's really true. We can't and shouldn't minimize that or disregard that. There's another one coming. But the choice to forgive puts us in a position to begin to experience a healing that actually helps us respond better the next time one comes our way. See, the grand goal over time would be to get hard to offend, because that's what Jesus was. And for us, that happens by building up the practice, the choice of forgiveness. I understand it is scary. Sometimes the choice to forgive is opening the door to healing the past, which Jesus so wants to do. But it also sometimes includes this choice to forgive what's coming before it actually happens. It's this choice. Maybe a very scary choice. But today, you can choose to forgive. There's a real simple prayer we'll show you later. It's a really simple prayer. This just says, Lord, I choose to forgive. And you just start naming people and groups and organizations. I choose to forgive. Whoever that is, whatever that is. Because it caused me to feel, and you just got to name and acknowledge the hurts. You got to call it out. You got to say what it is. But it starts with, Lord, I choose to forgive. In fact, I'd be so honest, Lord, as I don't really feel like forgiving. The grudge and the bitterness feels a little better right now. But because you know me and you're trying to care for me and you are the expert and you have modeled and invited us into this thing of forgiveness, it's so big to Jesus that Jesus actually says, if you come to a place in your life at a moment in time, or you come to a place like this and you have come to worship, Jesus actually says, hey, before you worship, let's go do the forgiveness thing. That's how big it was to Jesus. That's how much Jesus knew we needed it. We needed to clear the unforgiveness. Choose to forgive. And then receive some prayer. Because again, it really does. Forgiveness opens the door to healing. It's the initial step towards so much of healing. And then again, Jesus has put us around other sheep, right? Joel talked about this last week. We need each other. We're made to live together. It's always part of our life missing when it's not in Jesus-shaped community and togetherness. And so we move and we receive prayers for healing and strength and replenishing and renewal and courage. We receive the strength and faith of other people sometimes for us while we're in the middle of processing this pain. Nobody can choose forgiveness for you. But lots of people can pray for you in the healing process. We choose to forgive. We receive the prayer and the strength of others in it. And then where it's possible, have the conversation. The goal of Jesus is not just forgiveness, it's reconciliation. It's not just forgiveness for your soul, it's the reconciliation of a relationship. That's why Jesus forgave, right? It's to reconcile the relationship with us. That's what Jesus really wants. He wants the relationship. He wants to share life with us. He wants to lead us in this dynamic life with him. And so the goal is reconciliation. Forgiveness is for the health of your soul. Reconciliation, really, at the end of the day, ends up being for the glory of God because God reconciles things. So you go have a conversation where it's possible. Some of us are processing hurt from people who have passed away. Some of us are processing hurt, again, with organizations or groups of people, and it's hard to know, how would I ever, do that? And maybe you can find somebody who could just represent that organization, that group, that thing for you. But where it's possible, have the conversation. Go offer the forgiveness and expect nothing in response. Expect nothing. Expect nothing. Your forgiveness isn't contingent on their response, right? The health of your heart, the health of your soul is worth more than waiting on somebody else's perfect response. Okay? You make the choice. Have the conversation. Get rid of that unforgiveness. Set it down. You ever see a picture, maybe you've seen it in a movie or something, somebody who's like some intense training and they're running on a beach, which is hard enough, but then they're running on a beach with one of those parachutes behind them to create all the wind resistance. You know, I don't do that, okay? They're creating all of this resistance. And it's probably amazing for some short burst of training, right? Unbelievably amazing. But could you imagine living your whole life running with one of those parachutes behind you? And all the resistance that creates and all the drag that creates, how much that slows you down? How much it just keeps pulling you back a little bit. You're never quite running at optimal speed. You're never quite living fully what you could. I think it's a great example of unforgiveness. We strap it on, we put it on, we pick it up, somebody hurts us, we pick it up, we grab a hold, we put on, and we start running the rest of life with that. And it is just pulling us back. It is constantly slowing us down. Unforgiveness in your heart or mine, in your mind or mine, is a constant source of resistance. We are never running free with unforgiveness. We are never running free. But Jesus says, hey, just assume that you're going to need some healing and that it's available. Jesus is really saying, look, I'd like to take that parachute off you. I would love to just untangle you from that. And your move is just to choose to forgive. Choose to forgive. Choose to forgive. Now go ahead just for a second. And go ahead and feel the hurt. Whatever your hurt is, whether it's small and recent or big and lasting. Go ahead and feel that. That rejection, that disappointment, that overlook, that miss, that careless word, that intentionally destructive word. Go ahead. You're trying to run life. You should. But that thing, it's a parachute. It is a constant restraint limiting your life. It's a constant restraint limiting your life. And today, I want to just create an opportunity for you to respond, to make a choice to forgive. And in reality, all of us probably need to do it. Let's just be honest with each other, right? But can I tell you why some of you are already struggling to think about responding? Can we just put all the cards on the table? Because I know some of you are already thinking, I don't care what he says, I'm not doing that. I mean, that's not how I do church. I just sit in my seat. There's no way I'm responding to something this dude's saying. And we are never coming back here, by the way, either, babe. Okay, I mean, whatever you're thinking, right? I know. Right? Or you don't know what was done to me. You don't know. You don't know, John. I can't do that. You have no idea how bad that is. You have no idea how constant this pain is. You have no idea how constant these words in this treatment. You have no idea how daily I live with this coming in my. You just have no idea. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Can I just help you know why you think that right now? You don't really think that just because of the pain, and you don't really think that just because of your religious experience. Let's go back and see what Jesus says next. John 10:10, he says this. He says, there's a thief that has come to steal, kill, and destroy your life. The reason right now you're tempted to not respond, to not choose the Jesus way forward, is because there has been and there is a very real enemy trying to convince you it's better if you hold it. It's better if you look for vengeance. It would be too embarrassing to make a response. You would show your weakness if you made it. There's an enemy who would love nothing more than to keep the parachute on you. His whole goal is to slow you down and pick apart parts of your life and slowly steal more and more until he kills whole sections of your life, until he has destroyed who God created you to be. Your resistance to a response isn't necessarily about the pain or about this moment. There's an enemy with a real crafty, intentional plan to keep you stuck where you are, to keep you running with a parachute on, to keep you holding the unforgiveness. But Jesus beat all of that. Jesus said, enough with all of that. I came so that instead of all that, you could have life, so that you could know my expert and caring healing, so that you could know a way forward. I came so you could have life and you really could have it to the full. I came so that you could know my healing of the past. I came for that. Please take it. Please take it. And then Jesus says this. I love this. He's just trying to help us, right? It's almost like if he could put an arm around us, he's trying to help us. He says, listen, I am the good shepherd. I do have your good in mind. I am a good shepherd. And I know sometimes it's hard to see it, but I do know what you need. I do want good for you. My love for you is so purely motivated for you. So much so that just to convince you and to win the day and shift the tide, I've laid down my life for you. That's how much. That's how much. I laid down my life for you. So that you could choose forgiveness. So that you could experience this healing from the past. So you could get out from being caught in that parachute and actually running at full steam. And in just a couple minutes, some of you are going to make that choice. And I'm telling you that for some of you, in an instant, your life will feel lighter. When you choose to forgive, there are times that it is an instant move in your life, enough shifts in your soul that instantly your life feels lighter. You experience a new buoyancy, a new vibrancy just in it in an instant. We've all got some things in common. One of them is we've all been hurt. We've all been hurt. And I'm so sorry for your hurt. And if I laid out all of mine, I think you'd say the same to me. I'm so sorry for your hurt. But I'm so grateful. Jesus designed this moment for you and me. So here's what we're going to do. I want to invite you to stand, and our team is going to come, and I want to tell you what we're going to do. A couple responses you can take today. A couple responses. First one is, along the sides of this room, for those of you here in the room, along the sides of the room, you'll see some crosses and some tables. And on those tables, there's just blank cards, and there's pens there. And I want to invite you to have a real tangible moment where you just go to one of those tables and you grab one of those cards and a pen and you just write down who's hurt you or what the hurt is. And you might write one thing, you might write 5. Just go ahead and write it. Nobody's looking over your shoulder. You just have a private moment. If a line forms at tables, is great, right? I want you to just write it down. And then at each cross, at the foot of each cross, there's just a bin. And I want you to just walk that card over there and I just want you to rip it up. Just rip it up. Just be done with that thing, okay? Just leave it. Just leave it at a cross. Just be done with it. Say, look, if Jesus did this, I'm making the same choice that Jesus made for me. I'm making it. Just take a moment there if you need. Or take a card back to your seat and then move back in a minute. And then also along the back, there's 3 tables with a light on it, and there's a prayer person at each table. And I'd love for you just to let them pray a healing prayer over you. You don't have to tell them your hurt story. You can if you want. You don't have to. But just let them pray over you, this beginning of this healing that comes when you open the door by choosing to forgive. No hurt too small, no hurt too big. Let's move in it together. Jesus, in the next couple of minutes, we invite your help and we invite your strength. We make choices to submit to you and your ways. So would you give us all the strength and courage we might need? We absolutely reject all things that might feel like embarrassment or shame about responding to you. Our trust is in you. You are the expert and your care is perfect. Nobody has loved us like you have. Nobody. So thanks for modeling this and inviting us into it. We give ourselves to you in this moment, in your name and in your presence, Jesus. If you're joining online and you want to respond, just text forgive to the number that's on your screen during this time. There's going to be a forgiveness prayer on the screen here that maybe you'll pray while we sing and while you move to the table. There's also a copy of that forgiveness prayer at the table when you move. Church, the time is yours. Let's respond together. Move when you're ready.